I mean, you yourself, you studied in SOAS and you've seen there is this Orientalist perspective of Islam and specifically of the Holy Prophet. So things that, for example, the way you've just described this individual, this personality, is from a place of love, respect, where he brings positive energy to you. Now, when the Orientalists, so when I say Orientalists, I'm talking about scholars over the last 100 to 150 years who've seen the East, who've seen Islam and Arab people and their cultures and their religions. The way they would describe the Holy Prophet would be very different to the way you've described him, right? They would describe him as an individual. He came along, he had some ideas, he tried to, if they're going to be positive about him, reform the society that he was from. If they're not positive about him, they're like Dante from Italy or many of the other famous scholars from Europe. They would say that he was the Antichrist, or he was someone who'd come to remind the Christians of their evil ways so that they go back to God. You know, that kind of representation of him, which
Okay,
persists to today, right? How would
okay.
you try to explain to someone who would have these kind of things that they've read in newspapers and seen on TV? Because the way you've described them is really far off from the way they've seen it. How would you describe to someone from that perspective the
Well,
personality of Prophet Muhammad?
that's a loaded question. There's a lot to say here. Um, First of all, I would say that no one can actually claim, no one who respects their scholarly credibility can claim that he was just an intellectual man that had some ideas. Because even if you want to look at Orientalists or um Western views about Rasulullah, you will see that they put him up there as one of the most influential men of recorded history. You know, and everyone knows this. This is common knowledge. And yeah, influential men might not mean good, but definitely not just a man that's, some person with ideas. So first of all, we know he's one of the most influential men. Okay, so this influential man, what did he do? Well, again, there are certain scholars and institutions that recognize that what he did was something unprecedented in that time and in all times, and I'll get to that in a moment. That's why Harvard, for example, has one of Rasulullah's quotes on a plaque in its law department. And this is just for the West. Of course, in the East, his place is known, and he is the beloved, which is really interesting because in the West right now, there's this boom of the love of Sufism and Rumi, whereas everything that they have gotten it from the tradition of Rasulullah. So if they look at
Yeah,
this Rumi person that they love
exactly.
so much
Yeah.
and this whole Sufism and it's so cool, well, that's all Rasulullah. It's all Islam. So I don't know. You can't you have to differentiate between them. Why? In any case, if I was to tell someone with a different view, which by the way is a whole different discussion of hermeneutics and how people look at one thing in different ways. And this is a field in philosophy and epistemology that has to be discussed in depth. Yani it's not. I'm not going to get to that in this podcast
Part two
because
podcast.
yeah, it's maybe one day. Um, But if I was to say that, okay, look, there are facts at the end of the day, that regardless of how me and you want to view things, there are some facts that we cannot look away from. And one of those facts is that Rasulullah was oppressed for 13 years after his prophethood in Mecca, and his followers were exiled and killed and crucified, and they had to, go on boats to Ethiopia. You know, the whole this the
Migration.
refugee phenomenon, everything that occurs right now occurred in that time. Rasulullah had to see it happening to his own family, and he saw his closest companions be killed in front of him. All of this, and he didn't have any power to do anything at the time. And then when he does get the power, and this is just a historian's perspective, I'm not saying. Let me say this as a non-lover, non-believer. When this man has the power to gain revenge, and he goes back to Mecca 8 years after his migration to Medina, he comes back to Mecca 8 years only because they broke the treaty. So he was not coming to do anything um, to hurt anyone because he had made a peace treaty. They broke the treaty. He comes back with thousands of followers. He conquers their chief. The chief submits straight away. He goes into Mecca. Here, what do you think is going to happen right now? You are the people who have literally hurt this man since you can't even remember. And now he has power. If someone came to me and had hurt my mother and father and had hurt my siblings and my friends and killed them. If one of my friends were killed, I'd probably never leave me for the rest of my life. And I might hold a grudge against the murderer for the rest of my life, even if the murderer is in jail, right? What if it was hundreds of my friends and companions? And what if the person, the perpetrator, never received justice? No, actually, they had a lot more to enjoy in their wealth and their life, and they were never taken into account. Finally, now I have the opportunity to get my revenge. What does he do? He lets everyone go. He doesn't hurt a soul. He says, everyone, to the Muslims, march into Mecca with white flags and then scream out, whoever comes to the flag is safe. Put your weapons away. No one's supposed to get hurt. Whoever goes to the Kaaba is safe. Whoever wants to go to the house of Abu Sufyan is safe. He's also Rasulullah.
And Abu Sufyan was the leader of the people who attacked
Yes.
his people, and
That's Rasulullah is so strategic. Abu Sufyan was one of the chiefs of the Quraysh, of the tribe in Mecca. Rasulullah gets him first and tells him, Abu Sufyan, submit so your people won't get hurt. When they see you with me, they'll let go. And Abu Sufyan realizes the situation and he submits. So Rasulullah goes in with him. Of course, if they see their chief working with us, they're not going to fight back. Rasulullah would take every precaution, everything he can do to prevent any violence. And at the same time, once he can take them as prisoners, he lets them go. And not only that, in the wars to follow, whatever the Muslims received of wealth, when it came to camels or goats, he gave it straight away to the people of Mecca, only so that he can keep on their good sides so that they don't fall into any other disputes and try to guide them to Islam. That's why when a dispute fell between his older followers and they said, Rasulullah, how come you're giving the wealth to the Quraysh and how come you're giving it to other people where we've been with you from the very beginning? He tells them, I'm giving them from dunya because they still need training. They still need help. But I didn't expect you guys to want dunya. I thought you wanted Rasulullah, so I'm going with you to Medina. And they would cry. So he said, I'm coming with you. I didn't know it. Don't let a small part of dunya take away everything you've done. So he even knew how to talk to different types of people. This person only responds to dunya. So let me speak to him through dunya first until I win him over. And then I can bring him true knowledge and true enlightenment. Whereas these people, I expect them to know more. Unfortunately, he was let down a lot in his life. And this is something else that when you get to know Rasulullah and you see how he dealt with people with such mercy and love, yet without naivety, whilst being a very strategic political leader, then you realize this person was not just some man in the desert with some ideas.
I'm glad you watched our video. Please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter to be notified of future video releases.